Hello, hello. Okay. So this is kind of my first time doing this, but I think we're looking good here. Alright, so today's main goal is to... Sorry, I'm going to pull up the live stream so I can monitor it as well. Boom. Today's main goal is awesome. Here we are. Okay, so the first app that I want to check out for Shopify stores is going to be the AMP app. So, one thing that's really cool about the AMP app is there is a technology that Google pioneered a few years ago called accelerated mobile pages. And accelerated mobile pages is basically their way of making it easy for um, like mobile devices that don't have like access to the internet through a hard line, right? They're mostly loading it on a mobile connection, which is by nature going to be a little bit slower than if you were to do it on desktop. Um, and so, unfortunately, Shopify doesn't have that built in. So what AMP is supposed to do is supposed to make it easier with faster pre-caching, a simpler technology that's easier to load, and theoretically, AMP is like a template that comes with like a certain amount of like themes that you can customize and build with. So there are a whole bunch of different like AMP themes that you can utilize. Let's see. Oh, they want you to contact them for free mobile themes. Yeah, and there's some pretty simple ones on here as well. I'm going to use probably the Brooklyn one for accelerated mobile processing here. So my current app theme is done. This actually could work pretty freaking well for mobile. Oh, Michelin, you gotta come say hi. Come say hi. Come say hi to the stream. You're already yelling and screaming. You might as well come and say hi, right? Um, okay, so this is kind of what... Okay, so let's do importing the theme settings here. Yes. This is kind of my first time playing around with specifically the Amplify Me app. So I kind of want to test it out, see how it works. If it actually does, that was my cat. If it actually does make a significant change to the App Store and everything. So first, it's got to import all the settings that I have set up on my kind of my test Shopify store. Okay, so we've got clicks are not allowed in the preview, huh? Oh, interesting. So what if I hit save? What happens? Theme configuration updated. Okay, so let's go back. I want to see, what did that do to my store? Did that change my store at all? Doesn't look like it. So if we go to customize, okay, so here's my store. What if I preview it? Okay, so that looks about the same. What if I were to load you on mobile though? Reload. Also, it looks about the same. Wonder if I need to reload the store here in order to get it to work. Okay, so that's specifically for product pages. I can adjust the typography. So what if I did? Okay, so that's how that's gonna look. If I changed you to Arbo. Interesting. Okay. Got your colors that you can customize, which is pretty cool. Let's do. What are my colors? I don't even remember. Let's just grab a couple of random colors here. Let's say that I want my headings, buttons. It's not bad. And then backgrounds for drawers. Okay, so that's a little wonky. Yeah, so I should have all those in there, and those aren't showing. Interesting. Okay. What about desktop? Looks fine. Actions. Okay, so if I have that, does it actually load is the problem. Okay, so that's specifically if somebody ends up installing it as a web app. So, just in case you're curious, PWA is another technology by Google called Progressive Web Apps. So Zillow does this, right? If I were to load Zillow on a mobile page, um, it offers me the ability to install it. Yahoo Finance does this too, where I can install that website as an app on my phone. There are some good marketing benefits to Progressive Web Apps, where Progressive Web Apps we know that on people's phones, the data tells us at least that they are likely to only click on about 5 or 6 um, frequently used apps on their phone all the time. But they're not necessarily as likely to click on any of the other apps. So if you have a lot of really frequent customers to your website, or you have people who frequently visit your website but maybe don't purchase every time that they visit, installing a web app as a technology that your store can feature is actually a really good idea. Because you can put that on their phone as something that they frequently can visit and they can frequently track, um, and potentially have the opportunity to make additional purchases. So there's a lot of really good potential value there for progressive web apps. Should everybody have the option for progressive web apps? No. If you're a very traditional e-commerce store, you have normal analytics, right? And what I mean by normal analytics is you get a few purchases, but you maybe 10% of your fan base is pretty loyal. and they only come periodically for purchases. They don't have recurring purchases. You're not a wholesale distributor. All you're really selling are items that people are mostly going to purchase on a occasional basis or on a um, like when they have a hankering for it. So this is things like fashion sales or um, anything really similar to fashion sales. Honestly, fashion sales if you're selling t-shirts, um, honestly almost anything on Shopify. If you're selling art goods or any sort of drop shipping product is another good example. You're unlikely to have a ton of repeat customers. The more repeat customers you can get, the better. But generally speaking, people are going to be like kind of one and done purchasers. If you fit into that category, then I wouldn't really recommend going through the time and the effort to set up a progressive web app. It usually just makes more sense to do an AMP app, so that mobile visits and mobile traffic ends up being a little bit more monetized, being a little bit more effective, being a little bit more focused on their user experience is also going to improve your site speed. So um, Amplify Me is probably a pretty good app for the most part. Um, let's see, AMP pages. So right now it looks like they mostly only run on product pages by default. Let's see, are there any other pages that run? Yeah, so you'll have to pay in order for other pages to load, um, instead of it just being things like, let's see, just your product pages, which, if I'm being 100% honest with you, this is all you really need for improving your site speed. Um, if your website is anything like any of the e-commerce websites I've worked with, you're actually going to get a lot of traffic specifically to your product pages, not specifically to like your homepage or about us. And so pairing AMP accelerated mobile processing with a couple of these other page speed optimization apps that I'm going to recommend um, is actually a really, really good method for improving your site speed because you're kind of making the best of both worlds, right? So that's accelerated mobile processing. If you want to purchase their stuff, it probably is worth it if you get a lot of traffic to your homepage or a lot of traffic to your about page, where that's the first page that they visit, not your product page, right? But if that's not the case, then you can get away with just doing this one for free, and you'll have everything that you need in order to improve your site speed, ultimately. Um, okay, the other app that I wanted to show off on stream here is called Booster. So I'm going to click on recommended here. Doesn't look like it's on there. Booster. Page speed is the one that I'm looking for. This one. So page speed optimizer. This is really good. This has really one very specific function, and that's to preload links when somebody visits your site. So things like your homepage and your About Us page. This will really just help kind of improve what feels like the snappiness of your site. If you have any pages that feel like they load really slowly on mobile, this is really nice. Basically, all this does is it adds a little bit of a JavaScript file that preloads a lot of those pages on mobile or on desktop. You're not going to see a massive change on like any of the traditional page load speed apps, but you will feel a perceptible difference when you're navigating around the UI of your store. And you saw how I installed it there. It's actually really straightforward, really simple, really easy to do. You literally just click install, and then you click the button to turn it on, right? And it's really, really nice. Another couple of apps for page speed that I really like are going to be, let's see. So any sort of image reduction app or image compression app is going to be really, really helpful. Specifically, you're going to look for anything related to delivering your images in WebP format. So let's do apps, and then we'll do page speed. The other thing that we could do is we could look for anything. Oops. Let's go to Let's just go to the App Store here really quick. So another thing that's going to be really, really nice is, so we've already looked at all of these. So I kind of want to show you how to assess which apps are going to be helpful, not just show you the apps that you should use, because honestly, the competition in the app space here is really, really high. So there's a lot of really good apps for Shopify, but there are also a lot of apps that used to be really good, and then they kind of fall out of favor over time for a variety of reasons, right? Maybe they're free for a little while, but then they introduce a lot of those free features behind a paywall. So there's a lot of potential reasons to just kind of learn how to assess and find which apps are going to be best for your site speed optimization profile. And that's kind of what I want to teach you here. So what I'm looking for is image compression or WebP format converter. So number one is that Shopify should, I believe, automatically convert to WebP, but it seemed kind of iffy. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So Tiny SEO, let's see. It's made by Tiny IMG, which I actually use these guys for my website for my image compression, and it can be really helpful. I want to touch just a little bit on image compression and how image compression works and best practices for images. So number one is that Shopify recommends that most of your like product page images be around the area of like 2000 by 2000. I think they recommend 2056 by 2056. I really don't think you need to go that high. The reason they recommend that is so that they can scale it up to big screens like the one I'm looking at, as opposed to mobile, where most people are going to be loading your site, right? So basically what an app like Tiny SEO Speed Image Optimizer does is it does a little bit of image compression, and they actually say that they do SEO alt and file name optimization. I don't know how much I'd actually do that. I would prefer just to do my own alt text and SEO optimization, but I kind of leave that one to you. So yeah, basically what it does is it assesses what image size is actually best for that kind of page, and then it creates a either a compressed or like an optimized version of that site for that page layout. And to touch on just a little bit about what page layout means, if I take this screen and I compress it, you'll notice that everything kind of shrinks into one area, right? And then as I start to stretch it out, these are called viewports. So right now my browser is just doing a bit of compression, likely based off of the HTML and the CSS, to scale kind of the content inside it dynamically. There likely isn't multiple different HTML versions or sizings for all of these different types of apps, right? What's happening here is it's just like adjusting based off of the screen width. But then if I stretch it further, you'll notice that there are different like scaling things that happens, and part of this is due to HTML and CSS. But specifically when I'm in like this in this kind of a file or screen size where it's longer than it is wide, this usually is how developers build sites to be responsive to screen sizes, right? Is that really I have a mobile version and maybe I have a tablet version if I have a lot of tablet users, and I have a desktop version, right? So the mobile version kind of scales depending on screen size, but as I start to get a little bit bigger screens, now I'm looking at like kind of a smaller laptop. Now this is kind of a regular 13 to 15 inch size, right? And you'll notice anything past this size, the only thing that's really increasing in size is this background color pushing over into the edges, background color to the edges, right? Same kind of thing here. So the larger I scale it, nothing really changes. And so what an app like Tiny SEO does is it takes the image that you have on your product page or your home page or whatever, excuse me, and it basically goes, okay, I need to have an image file size of you know, what? How big is this image here? Yeah, so it's 720 by 1280, right? That's ultimately how big this particular image needs to be when it's on mobile, right? It doesn't have to be 2000 by 2000, even though Shopify recommends 2000 by 2000, right? This only needs to be 720 by 1280. So what an app like Tiny SEO does is it takes the images that you put in there, if you put them in at 2000 pixels, right? And it dynamically scales and adjusts them based off of what the best viewport is for that product page or for that home page or for that screen size, right? This can be, there are pros and cons to this. So because you guys don't have to worry on Shopify about anything related to hosting or SEO, or excuse me, not SEO, but like the amount of files on your site, right? Shopify takes care of all of that. You don't really have anything to worry about by having hundreds of thousands of different pictures on your site, right? That's kind of the disadvantage to an app like this on, for, say, like a WordPress site, is that the more images I have, the more bandwidth that takes up, and usually the amount of hosting charges kind of scales, right? Because I'm paying for my own hosting. Since you guys are on Shopify, this is the best way to take advantage of that, right? Now, they include 50 free images per month. That's probably a little bit low, but for most Shopify stores, right, I'm guessing you're probably not bringing in a lot of products every month. It's probably the same X amount of products that exist month to month, and then you just kind of scale month over month, and you're trying to optimize for selling those particular products. So the free pricing here will work for 90% of people who are watching this, right? Um, but if you do like drop shipping and you have a lot of products, it's worth it to do some of the calculations to see, is this something that's actually worth doing, right? So I would definitely try the free version, and then kind of as you scale upwards, you can go, okay, is it actually worth $3 a month for me to have faster images, right? And you can kind of do that calculation on your own. Okay, the last kind of set of things I wanted to touch on in terms of site speed is actually not related to the best apps for Shopify, and it's more related to the best practices for Shopify. So, like I mentioned earlier, Shopify recommends that you upload your products in like 2000 by 2000, and that's just simply unnecessary. Now, it is important to upload them in the right format. So for product pages, it's best to make sure that your images are uploaded in a like Instagram size, right? So square, 1:1 aspect ratio, and then do at the very least HD. So 720 by 720, good, better, best, 720, 1080 by 1080, and then if you really just don't have any issues with site speed, even going up to 1200 by 1200 is probably good enough for most stores. So that's best practices, and you'll notice that most of my images on here are pretty high resolution. If you don't want to use an app to automatically compress all those images, maybe you don't have a ton of images and you can actually edit these yourself, is you can actually crop and rotate inside the Shopify app on your own. So let's say I wanted this to make sure it was square, right? That's what I want. Gotta get my curls in there. And then done, right? And then now I want to resize it to 1080 by 1080. Boom! Boom! Now I've got a 1080p version of my product, and that's what you'll see on the actual live page, right? So now I've got this cropped, and it's easy, straightforward, good to go, right? Awesome. Looking good. Okay. And then other things to know in terms of best practices. So without getting into all of the technical details of what you actually need to do on a Shopify store, Don't just install apps willy-nilly and then never remove them. Um, any app that's on here needs to serve a purpose, and the more that you can kind of I guess, diversify what an app does for you, the better. Because every app, when you install it, comes with additional JavaScript, comes with additional HTML, comes with additional CSS, right? It comes with a bunch of this additional code that your website has to run in the browser every time that your website is loaded, right? So the more apps that you install, most people don't realize this when they start their first Shopify store, is that every app you install can contribute a significant percentage to reducing the speed of your store, right? And that's not good. We don't like that. So try and keep the amount of apps that you have installed to a minimum. If there's an app that you can find that does multiple things and kind of achieves multiple purposes that you're trying to achieve at the same time, ooh, that's nice, right? That'll help us because we can minimize the amount of, Google calls this unused JavaScript or unused HTML, CSS, and minifying it, right? And that can help significantly. If you do have a lot of apps installed, unfortunately, the best way to do this is to go into your theme code and actually see if you can find any leftover code from any leftover apps, right? So usually if they end up, the place that you're going to want to look for any leftover code that's installed on your website is going to be, number one, theme.liquid. So theme.liquid represents all of the main content for your store. So your theme.liquid file is going to contain things like, and you'll even see it here, right? It's got most of the heading description. It's got your main content. It's got your header. It's got your footer, and that's kind of the main details that's included in here, right? Your CDN for Shopify, right? A lot of that is going to be included in here. Now, say I installed AMP, but it didn't really do what I wanted it to do, and I still have this code here, right? I would need to delete it. So number one is I would look for where the Amplify code says Amplify Me Start, and then I would look for where it says Amplify Me End, and then I would just delete that code, right? Now, because I didn't actually uninstall the app, right, that code is still going to be there. So if I needed to uninstall the app, I would just go here and go uninstall, right? Now, every app is going to be a little different. Some of them will leave traces of their code behind once they've uninstalled. They shouldn't, right? But it can be hard to know for sure. So to fix that, we just go into the code again. So I've uninstalled it. It shouldn't be here, but it is, right? I still have the Amplify Me Start in here, and I don't want it, so I'm just going to delete that and hit save, right? Now, they were really nice with how they labeled this. Right, so let's go 5 minutes ago. So they included a really nice section where they included a comment about, hey, this is the start and this is the end of the Amplify section in your theme. So that makes it really clear, oh, I know that I can just delete this, right? So this also tells me that there's a snippet of the Amplify app that is running, that is here in my site files, that is technically going to include some unused code, even if I delete this section, right? I won't need to, so generally speaking, I won't need to delete this, right? Once I remove this and I click delete, then that's everything that I need to do in order to make sure that I've removed all of the existing code on my store from an app that I've uninstalled, right? But best practice is still to check in your snippets folder to make sure that there's nothing left over that still needs to be removed, right? So go to snippets and Amplify Me Snippet Liquid, right? And I would delete this. So you'll notice there's nothing here anymore, right? Because I uninstalled it. And it's possible that I'm still seeing kind of old code because the server hasn't updated my theme.liquid file yet. So I'm still looking at kind of old information here, and there's nothing here to delete, so I have nothing left to worry about. I've removed all of the unnecessary JavaScript from this page, right? Okay, a few things that I wanted to share with you guys in terms of best practice for optimizing your page speed. So number one, if you can avoid getting into your code, avoid it completely. Number two is if you do need to go into your code, always duplicate your current theme first, right? So duplicate, and then if you really want to go the extra mile, download your theme file as well. Because what that's going to do is it's going to make it possible for you to be able to go back and forth between versions of your theme, right? So I've got this copy of Dawn that's going right now. Once that's done, I could go in and do the same thing that I just kind of taught you guys how to do, right? How to find the code, how to remove it, and how to make sure that there's no remnants of an old app installed on it. But if you're not familiar with editing code, updating code, and making adjustments to your Shopify store, you want to make sure that you're not going to delete anything super important. So creating a duplicate and then doing what I just showed you how to do first by in like a draft theme section, and then publishing that once you've finished it is going to allow you to make sure that you're not doing anything permanent to your site that is irreversible, right? So let's say that I did something crazy in my copy here where in my theme.liquid file, instead of deleting just that section, I also deleted the head, right? Now, usually Shopify won't even let you save something with any like issues like that, but let's look at what happens if I remove my head, right? So, yeah, that should have caused some issues. It didn't. Which is interesting, right? So let's get crazy. Let's delete a lot of this. Yeah, it won't even let me, right? So say you're running into an error like this, like, oh crap, I just had an error. Like, I don't even know what I did. I don't even know how to fix it, how to change it in my Shopify code, right? You can always just go back and go, okay, I don't want this anymore. I can just publish a version of my theme that I know still works and doesn't have any issues, and voila, we now have a Shopify site that is back up and has no issues. Right now I can go back into it and view my store, and there's essentially no changes. And that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really quick stream, but I thought that this would be an effective way to chat a little bit about the best way to make your Shopify store faster and to improve your page load time, improve your page speed. I'm planning on doing a few of these more often, just periodic check-ins, streams, showing you guys how to make really effective Shopify websites. Let me know if you like it. Leave a like, leave some comments. Let me know if you have any questions about best practices, and let me know if you want to see more videos kind of like this.